Hi, kindergarten. For our read aloud today, we are going to be reading all about Gandhi. Now, your activity today is to be writing about the character. And so I chose this book specifically because it is a biography. That means it's a book all about Gandhi. So you can write about him for your character, main character of our book. Let's begin. Front cover, back cover, spine. Touch your back, touch your spine, open your mind, hands in your lap. It's story time. Now, the author of this book is Brad Meltzer, and the illustrator is Christopher Iliofios. And this book is all about Gandhi. I am Gandhi, and Gandhi is a man who lived in India. I am Gandhi. I am Gandhi. Today, people call me strong, unafraid, unstoppable. I wasn't always that way. As a child, growing up in India, I was shy, afraid of the dark, afraid of snakes. Can you tell I was small? I spent most of my time reading books. So there's Gandhi. Even with all my books, I wasn't a great student. I was bad at multiplication, and one day when I got one of our spelling words wrong, the teacher pointed to another boy's paper, and he told him to copy him. He knew it wasn't the right thing to do. He knew that wasn't the way to learn. When the teacher scolded me, I wasn't bothered. In my life, I did not copy others' work. However, there was one story that was worth copying. It was a play I read in school about a man named Shravran Kumar. He was so devoted to his parents that when they were too old to travel, he carried them on his back. So here's one of his favorite stories, and here's his teacher saying, copy that boy's work because you don't have the brain for it. We know not to copy anybody's work, don't we, kindergarten? Yeah. You need to grow your own brain all by yourself. You can get support, but important to grow your own brain. My father had a good job. He was a political leader, but there were many people who had no jobs. There were many people who were very poor. They were treated terribly at terrible jobs. Back then, the British, which is another country, right, were so powerful they ruled India. To get a good job like my father, I eventually had to move to London, which is another country not in India. London, England, and become a lawyer. I dressed really fancy, trying to gain a lot of money. When I moved back to India, I had my first case in court. This was the moment I had trained for. The moment I stood up, my heart sank to my boots. It was like the room was spinning. I sat down without a word. That was my first case. I completely failed it. So here he is trying to be a lawyer. Here he is wanting a good job like his father. Luckily, I got offered a new case in a country called South Africa. I was excited to try again. As I took the last part of my journey by train, a white passenger, someone with white skin like Miss Bear, noticed me. He said he didn't like me because I was Indian. My skin was brown and his was white. Believe it or not, he had the law on his side. So that might remind you of some other people we read about, right? That might remind you of Martin Luther King Jr. That might remind you of Ruby Bridges, Harriet Tubman. All of these people, they're not Indian, but white people said you can't do it because you do not have the same color skin as them. The train office asked me to leave. He said if I didn't leave, he would call the police. I refuse to leave, said Gandhi. Very similar to somebody else we read about. A policeman pushed me off the train and tossed my stuff onto the platform. Uh-oh, poor Gandhi. He really wasn't treated well by them. To finish the trip, I took a horse carriage, but once again, because of the color of my skin, they didn't let me sit inside with the white passengers. The driver hit me on the ears and refused to let him go inside. Eventually, he gave up. But this is how Indians were treated back then. They were treated really, really bad. Within a week, I had a meeting for my fellow Indians in South Africa. It was the first public speech of my life. I focused on truth. That means telling the truth. After the speech, we had a discussion. There are times to talk, but there's also real power in listening. That's really important, a message she said. There are times to talk, but there's important power in listening. So after I decided to stay in South Africa and formed the Natal Indian Congress to help Indians there be more active in the government, and that also means speaking their truth. The most important thing I did there is come up with satagaraha. In Sanskrit, it combines the word satya, which means truth, with agraha, which means firmness or force. So truth of force. Indeed, my truth was force. Was I perfect? No. Sometimes I lost my temper, but when I figured out the best way to fight was by transforming myself, working on our inner self to be the best person we could be. Very important, right? He worked on himself. In no time at all, I tested my truth of force. A new law was passed that would kick Indians out of South Africa unless they registered with the government. Police could stop us on the streets and search our homes anytime they wanted. For breaking the law, they put me in prison for 2 months because he didn't want to register with the government. You know, that's even stronger than that is people working together. Soon we started more settlements and farmers so that people could live their truth-force life. People had a peace army to listen and speak their truth from a place of peace. Here they are, their peace army. It took years, but the South Africa government passed the Indian Relief Act of 1914, improving the lives of many Indians. After 21 years, it was time to take what I had learned in South Africa back to my home in India. India was still being run by the British, who treated us terribly, and worst of all, Indians still treated some other Indians terribly too. So he's ready to move from South Africa, where he had that big job, right, to have the truth force job. Now he's going to take it with him to India. To protest the unfair British laws in India, we held another strike. 1 full day, no one went to work. All of India, every shop, every restaurant closed down. The British soldiers came, and they were very, very mean. But violence, their mean things did not get in the way. And as the head of our organization, the Indian National Congress, we called for boycotts. That means we didn't go to certain places. We did things like our strike that we did for Martin Luther King Jr. week, which meant we would stop going to British schools, we would stop buying from British places or working for the British people because they wanted their truth force, their voices, and they wanted them to listen, right? They wanted both of those important things. I had to make sure that as many people as possible heard my message. To do that, I relied on the same thing as I did when I was younger. I walked by standing together. Even though not everyone was on my side, I was peaceful. So Gandhi was very peaceful, getting people to listen and to speak their truth. I went back to my mission. The British government still wouldn't leave India. They passed laws, caused the SALT Acts. They were very, very mean to the Indians. They said, you can't sell your salt. They said they had to buy everything from the British people. Eventually, Gandhi got many people, and specifically many Indian people, to head towards the sea, to walk 240 miles so that their voices could be heard in a pact, right? So they didn't want people just to be heard by themselves. They wanted people to be heard. See the smaller group getting bigger, getting big, right? All their voices are going to be heard if many people are speaking. 24 days later, after their long walk, they reached their destination, the village of Gandhi, near the Arabian Sea. There I gave my signal to the nation. That means something he's doing for the whole country to see. I picked up a handful of salt left by the waves. That's it. I never raised my fist. I never carried a weapon. That means he's very peaceful. He's doing everything from a peaceful place. But in that act, holding salt that wasn't bought from the British, I fought back. I broke the law with the entire world watching. That means he didn't buy their salt, right? Like salt that you might put on spice, right? He didn't do that. He held in his salt. Soon after that, he was arrested for disobeying the law. But we'll see what happens. His struggles weren't done. He was in jail. They could lock him up, he said, but they could never stop him from speaking his truth. In my life, I was the small one. The skinny one, the poor one, the shy one, and the weak one. Over many years, I had many fights, but to fight by purposely avoiding violence. That means he fought peacefully. To refuse to raise your fist, that means to refuse to get into physical contact with people, no matter what is against you. Some would call this foolish or silly, but what it really is truth force. That means his truth was all peaceful. It is courageous. It is brave to do this. Today, Gandhi is famous as a powerful leader. He inspired a civil rights movement all across the world, including those led by Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela. He inspired them, right? He was a teacher for them to lead peacefully. For his amazing work, people started calling Gandhi a great soul, someone with a great soul, a great heart. Even today, people admire him for speaking his truth from a place of peace. And then Gandhi says to us, he says, strength doesn't come from the size of your body. It comes from the size of your heart. Show love, especially when you want to fight unfairness. You must help others who are in need. Carry them on your shoulders. Speak up for those people who don't have a voice. Hold true to your beliefs. I am Gandhi, and in a gentle way, I will shake the world. So I love this. And here's some real life pictures of Gandhi. Beautiful. Oh, and this is the Indian flag. Very important as we're learning about India right now. So looking at the book and looking at who the main character is, you can tell it's Gandhi. What's something you want to tell us about the character? If I was telling you about the character, I would say, I love how Gandhi, the character, spoke from a place of love and peace. Or I might say, I love how he listened and spoke to people. I love how gentle he was. I love the truth force he had. You can share a message that you got that really spoke to you, all about who Gandhi was and what was his message. Can't wait to see on Seesaw.